You're sitting in the doctor's chair. The needle hasn't touched your skin yet, but you're already flinching. Your shoulder pulls back. Your breath catches. Your whole body reacts to something that hasn't happened. That's strange if you think about it. Pain is supposed to be a response, a signal your body sends after something goes wrong. So why is your body reacting before anything has gone wrong at all? The honest answer is far stranger than reflex. Your flinch isn't a response to pain. It's a forecast of it. And the difference between those two things is about to change the way you understand every ache, sting, and dread you've ever felt. Here's the first thing to sit with. Your brain doesn't measure the wound. It measures what the wound means. Hold on to that. It sounds like a small idea right now. It isn't. In 1956, a Harvard anesthesiologist named Henry Beecher published a study that quietly broke everything doctors thought they knew about pain. Beecher had spent time as a battlefield physician during World War II, on the beaches at Amanzio, treating soldiers with wounds you wouldn't wish on anyone. Shattered bones, torn muscle, injuries that should have demanded every drop of morphine he had. But something didn't add up. Only 1 in 3 of these badly wounded soldiers asked for pain medication. Not because the supply had run out, not because they were being stoic for the cameras. When Beecher compared them to civilians back home with similar injuries from car accidents and construction falls, the difference was staggering. Most civilians begged for relief. Most soldiers barely mentioned the pain at all. Why would a shattered leg on a beach in Italy hurt less than a shattered leg in a parking lot in Boston? Beecher wasn't the only one who noticed the pattern. The nurses on the wards told him the same thing, over and over. Men with wounds that should have kept them awake all night were sleeping soundly by morning. Men who should have been begging for anything to numb the pain stayed calm, sometimes even talkative, joking with the medics who changed their bandages. This wasn't a handful of strange cases. Beecher tracked it across hundreds of soldiers, and the pattern held every time he checked it. For a while, the explanation seemed obvious. Adrenaline. Shock. The body flooding itself with chemicals in a life-or-death moment, numbing everything else out. It's a clean story. It fits what you'd expect. Danger switches off pain so you can survive the danger. That explanation held for decades. It's still what a lot of people assume today. But it isn't the real reason. And Beecher himself suspected something deeper was going on. Something that had nothing to do with chemistry and everything to do with meaning. For the soldier, that wound meant something specific. It meant the war was over for him. It meant a ship home, a hospital bed, his life continuing. For the civilian on the pavement, the injury meant the opposite. Disruption, debt, time lost, uncertainty about the future. Same tissue damage. Completely different message. Beecher wrote it plainly. The intensity of suffering is determined by the significance of the injury, not the injury itself. That single sentence sat quietly in medical literature for years, waiting for someone to prove exactly how far it went. That someone was an Italian neuroscientist named Fabrizio Benedetti, working out of the University of Turin decades later. Benedetti wanted to know just how much the brain's expectations could shape a physical sensation. So he ran a version of an experiment that sounds almost too simple to matter. He injected people with plain saline, salt water, nothing that should hurt at all. But before the injection, he told one group of participants that the substance would cause pain, and it did. Real, measurable pain, reported by people who had nothing but salt water in their veins. Their brain scans lit up in the same regions that activate during actual tissue damage. Not imagined activity. Not people lying to please the researcher. Genuine neural pain signals, generated entirely by expectation. This has a name now. Scientists call it the nocebo effect, the evil twin of the more famous placebo effect. Where placebo uses expectation to relieve pain, nocebo uses expectation to create it out of nothing at all. Benedetti pushed the experiment further. He found that if he blocked certain chemical pathways in the brain with medication, the nocebo pain disappeared. Even though the participants still believed the injection would hurt, the belief stayed exactly the same. Only the biology changed, which meant the pain wasn't coming from the salt water and it wasn't purely coming from the belief either. It was coming from a real, physical chain of events inside the brain that expectation had switched on as surely as any needle could. So which is it then? Is pain about the body, or is it about the story your brain tells about the body? By the early 2000s, a pain researcher at Oxford named Tracey had the imaging tools to answer that question directly. Tracey scanned people's brains while gradually increasing heat on their skin, watching in real time what happened the moment before the sensation became painful. What she found was that the brain's pain circuitry didn't wait for the heat to cross the threshold. It activated in anticipation, based on what the person expected to happen next. In one version of her experiments, Tracey told participants the heat was about to increase, then quietly kept it exactly the same. Their brains still responded as though the burn had gotten worse. The pain processing regions lit up on the scan. The participants rated the sensation as more intense than the identical heat delivered a few minutes earlier, with no warning at all. Nothing on their skin had changed. Only the warning had. That's the part worth sitting with. Tell someone the heat is about to get worse, and their brain responds as though it already has, even when the actual temperature stays exactly the same. The wound isn't the message. The forecast is. This is where the flinch in the doctor's chair stops looking like a simple reflex arc, spinal cord to muscle, no brain required. It starts looking like something closer to a prediction engine running a simulation, faster than you're even aware of. Before the needle arrives, your brain has already modeled what it's about to feel, based on every needle you've ever experienced, every story you've heard, every wince you've seen cross someone else's face in a waiting room. It pulls from that entire archive in a fraction of a second, and it braces you for that model. Not for the actual needle, for its best guess about the needle. Which means the pain you feel a half second later isn't purely a report from your skin traveling up to your brain. It's a negotiation. Your skin sends real data, yes, but your brain has already decided in advance roughly how bad this is supposed to be, and it blends that expectation with the incoming signal to produce what you actually experience. Two people can receive the identical needle prick and walk away with completely different amounts of pain, because they walked in with completely different forecasts. That's the part that changes everything about the soldiers on that beach. It wasn't that their pain got switched off by chemicals, the way the old adrenaline story assumed. It's that their brains had recalculated what the wound meant, and the forecast for what came next, survival, rescue, home, was so different from a civilian's forecast that the resulting sensation was genuinely, measurably smaller. Beecher's clean adrenaline explanation wasn't wrong that something physiological was happening in those bodies. It was incomplete. The real driver sat one level higher than any hormone, in expectation itself, in the meaning the brain assigned to the wound before the body ever finished processing it. Think about how much weight that puts on a single word. Meaning, not the depth of the cut, not the number of nerve endings severed. Meaning. So here's the twist. You've never once felt pain as a pure, unfiltered report of damage. Not one single time in your life. Every ache you've ever had was already shaped by a prediction your brain made before the signal even finished arriving. That flinch before the needle touches your skin isn't your body getting ahead of itself by mistake. It's your body doing exactly what it evolved to do. Forecasting first, feeling second, and this doesn't stay confined to needles and battlefields. It's running quietly under almost everything you dread. The email you're afraid to open hurts more in the 10 seconds before you click it than in the 10 seconds after, because your brain is already running the worst-case simulation, bracing you for a version of the message that might not even exist. The awkward conversation you've been avoiding all week feels heavier in the anticipation than in the actual 5 minutes it takes to have it. Dentists have known this for years without needing a single brain scan to prove it. Patients who are told exactly what a procedure will feel like in plain, calm language consistently report less pain than patients who are left to imagine it, even when the drill runs for the exact same number of seconds on the exact same tooth. Chronic pain works the same way, and it's part of why it can be so hard to escape. People with long-term back pain or migraines often report their pain flaring hardest right when they expect it to, tied to a certain time of day, a certain movement, a certain place. independent of what's actually happening in the tissue in that moment. The forecast becomes the pattern. The pattern reinforces the forecast. Around and around it goes, long after the original injury has healed. Your brain isn't lying to you in any of these moments. It's doing exactly what it was built to do. It's just that its job was never to measure the world with perfect accuracy. Its job is to guess it, fast enough to keep you alive using the cheapest, quickest information available, which is usually what happened last time. That's not a flaw in you. It's not weakness, and it's not something a needle-phobic person should feel embarrassed about in a waiting room. It's the same machinery that let a wounded soldier sleep through the night on a beach in Italy, and the same machinery that turned salt water into real pain in a lab in Turin. One brain, one forecasting system, running underneath every sting, every ache, every dreaded appointment you've ever sat through. You'll be sitting in that chair again someday. The needle still won't have touched your skin, but this time you'll know the flinch was never really about the needle at all. It was about the story your brain had already written, half a second before reality even had the chance to speak.